The morning light fell softly across the quiet neighborhood. The air felt strangely still, as if the world was waiting for something. I stepped outside and breathed in the cool scent of wet earth. It was a familiar smell, yet it carried a faint sharpness that unsettled me. Birds usually filled the sky with sound, but today their silence pressed against my ears. I walked down the narrow path behind my house, drawn by an odd feeling in my chest. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the ground resisted my presence. The trees around me stood unusually tall and shadowed, their leaves refusing to move even with the breeze. My skin prickled as I entered the small clearing I had always known. It looked the same, yet something felt deeply wrong. The air felt warmer there, thick enough that my breathing slowed. A faint humming sound drifted through the space, too soft to understand but too clear to ignore. I scanned the area, searching for the source of the sound. My heartbeat steadied, then quickened when I noticed the ground in the center of the clearing. The soil looked freshly disturbed, dark and loose, as if something had been buried, or as if something had recently crawled out. A cold shiver climbed up my spine. I moved closer without realizing it. The humming grew louder, vibrating lightly through the ground beneath my shoes. The sound felt alive, almost as if it recognized my presence. I knelt down and pressed my hand against the soil. The earth pulsed once beneath my palm. A slow, steady thump. Like a heartbeat. I froze as the soil shifted under my hand. A thin crack opened across the ground. The humming deepened into a low, trembling rumble that spread through the clearing. The trees quivered, though no wind touched them. I stood up quickly, my legs unsteady. The crack widened. The soil swelled upward, rising in a shape that did not belong to anything natural. Something inside the earth pushed against the surface, slow but deliberate. For a moment the entire clearing felt alive. Breathing, watching, waiting. The shape beneath the soil continued to rise, forming a long curve. Then another, then a third. The air thickened with the scent of iron. My chest tightened. My vision blurred for an instant as the humming suddenly stopped. The silence dropped heavy and unnatural. The soil bulged once more. And then something beneath it began to move upward again. The ground rose again in a slow, dreadful motion. The shape beneath the soil pressed upward with a force that felt steady and intentional. My hands trembled at my sides as I stepped back. The air felt thin, as if the clearing stole each breath from my lungs before I could take it in. The soil broke open in a sharp, dry crack. A narrow line split across the surface, and dirt spilled out like sand pouring from a broken pot. A faint vibration spread through the earth and climbed up my legs. My knees felt weak, yet I remained rooted in place. Something pale pushed through the opening. It looked like a small piece of bone rising from the earth. My stomach turned as I leaned forward, unable to stop myself. The pale piece shifted slightly, scraping against the soil with a sound that echoed far too loudly in the silent clearing. The air tasted metallic. My tongue felt heavy. My heartbeat thumped painfully against my ribs. The pale object rose higher, covered in thin streaks of dark soil. It was a hand. A thin, human-like hand. The fingers curled slowly, one by one, as if testing the air. A cold ache spread across my chest. The hand reached upward, trembling but strong enough to grip the ground. The fingers dug into the earth, pulling with an unnatural steadiness. The soil shifted and cracked as something larger began to rise from below. My mind urged me to run. My legs refused to listen. The world felt too quiet and too sharp, as if the clearing listened for my reaction. Another hand broke through the soil on the other side of the crack. This one dragged itself forward with more force. The ground around it shuddered, releasing a deep groan that vibrated through the trees. A faint whisper drifted across the clearing. It did not come from any direction. It seemed to seep from the soil itself. The whisper had no words, only a long exhale that felt heavy with intent. The shape beneath the earth shifted again. A head began to rise. Not fast, not slow, but with a steady rhythm that matched the pulse under the ground. The face remained buried, covered by thick layers of soil that clung tightly to the skin beneath. My eyes burned as the air grew thicker. The soil around the rising figure cracked apart like old clay breaking under heat. A thin stream of insects scattered from the cracks, racing away from the figure as if escaping danger. The figure's shoulders emerged next. Its posture looked rigid, as if each movement demanded immense strength. The arms lifted its upper body higher, and I could hear a faint grinding sound with every motion. I stepped back again. A branch snapped beneath my foot, and the sound shot through the clearing like a sudden burst of thunder. The figure stopped moving. The silence that followed pressed against my skull. The figure remained half buried, unmoving, its soil-covered head tilted slightly toward me. My breath caught in my throat. The clearing felt colder. Then the soil on the face cracked. A small break formed where the eyes should have been. A thin line opened and released a slow stream of dust. The dust drifted upward in a straight line, as if pulled by something unseen. The crack widened. 2 dark spaces appeared beneath it. The figure's eyes were open, staring directly at me, even though its body remained partly underground. A sharp ringing filled my ears. My vision shook for a moment. The dark eyes did not blink. They did not move. They simply stared with a stillness that felt more alive than any motion could express. The figure lifted its hands again. The fingers dragged across the ground, pulling its body a few inches higher. Its chest rose from the soil, covered in torn and withered fabric that hung in layers like old, wet paper. A smell crept through the clearing. A deep, earthy scent that carried hints of decay. I swallowed hard as the air thickened with the odor. The figure shifted again. The head tilted slowly to one side, as if studying me. The soil slipped from its face in dry flakes. Underneath the dirt, the skin looked pale and stretched thin. My legs finally responded to the fear that had been building in my chest. I stepped backward again, more quickly this time. The clearing rustled softly around me, though no wind touched the trees. The figure moved faster now. Its arms pushed harder. Its shoulders rose fully from the earth. The eyes remained locked on mine. A low sound broke from its throat. It did not sound like a voice. It sounded like a long breath drawn through dry leaves. The sound scraped against my eardrums. The figure reached forward. Its hand opened wide. The fingers extended toward me with a deliberate slowness that felt worse than any quick motion could have. My pulse raced. The ground trembled beneath me. The trees swayed for the first time, though the air remained still. I turned my head, searching for any path that would lead me out of the clearing. The path behind me looked darker than before, as if the shadows had grown thicker. My skin prickled as a wave of heat pushed through the area. The figure lifted itself another inch. The soil collapsed behind it. A faint pattern emerged on its skin, like thin lines carved across the surface. The lines glowed faintly, almost too faint to notice. A soft thud echoed across the clearing. The sound repeated again, and again. Each thud felt heavier than the last. The ground shook with each one. I looked to the trees, expecting them to fall. But the sound did not come from the forest. The sound came from beneath the figure. From deep inside the earth. Another thud. The figure's head jerked upward, as if responding to the sound. The lines on its skin brightened. Its eyes widened with a strange intensity. The thud grew louder, rising from the earth like a heartbeat. A heavy, slow heartbeat that did not belong to anything human. The figure raised its hand once more. Its fingers stretched farther than before, bending in a way that made my stomach twist. The earth swelled beneath it. The soil shifted in a wide circle. The heartbeat grew stronger. The sound surrounded me, and the figure continued to rise. The trembling in the ground slowed, then softened into a fading rhythm. The heavy heartbeat beneath the earth grew weaker with each passing moment. The glowing lines across the figure's skin dimmed to a pale shimmer. Its hand stopped reaching toward me and slowly lowered back to the soil. A long breath passed through the clearing. The air settled around us, warm and strangely calm. The trees returned to their stillness as if nothing had disturbed them at all. The figure blinked once. The movement was slow and heavy, as if every blink required great effort. Its dark eyes lifted toward the sky, no longer fixed on me. The soil beneath it shifted with a softer, gentler motion. The heartbeat faded again, then disappeared entirely. The silence that followed felt peaceful instead of heavy. The clearing seemed to loosen its tight grip on my senses. The figure lowered its head. Its hands released the tense grip on the ground. The lines on its skin faded completely, leaving only a faint memory of the glow. The figure sank slightly, resting its weight against the soft earth. I felt a sudden calmness spread gently through my chest. The fear that had wrapped around me slowly fell away. The air smelled clean again, carrying only the scent of leaves and morning soil. For the first time, I noticed the soft rustle of distant birds returning. The figure slowly turned its face toward me one last time. Its expression carried no threat, only a deep tiredness, a quiet plea for release. The earth answered with a low, gentle shift. The soil rose and wrapped itself around the figure like a blanket. Each movement was smooth and natural. The ground welcomed it back as if reclaiming something it had been waiting for. The figure did not resist. Its body lowered inch by inch. The earth closed over its shoulders, then its arms, then its face. The dark eyes remained visible for a final moment before the soil covered them. The heartbeat did not return. The ground settled into perfect stillness. The clearing exhaled softly, as if relieved. I stood there in the quiet morning, unsure of what I had witnessed. But a sense of peace pressed lightly against my chest, steady and warm. The air no longer felt heavy. The shadows no longer seemed to watch me. I stepped back from the center of the clearing. The path behind me brightened as sunlight broke through the trees. A single breeze passed gently across my shoulders. It carried the faintest hint of gratitude, drifting from the earth itself. I walked toward the edge of the forest with slow, steady steps. The world around me felt different now. The morning light softer, the silence kinder. When I reached the path, I turned back for a final look. The clearing stood empty and calm. No trace of the cracked soil. No sign of the rising figure. Only the natural stillness of a quiet morning remained. I breathed in deeply. The air felt lighter than it ever had before. I stepped onto the path and continued walking home, carrying the memory of that moment with a strange, quiet reverence. It became a day I would never forget. A day that reminded me how deeply the world can breathe beneath our feet. A day that taught me that not every fearful moment ends in darkness. Some end in understanding, some end in peace. And that was the true reason it became a day of remember.